Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life we find ourselves feeling like we need to chase after what we want, striving, pushing, and exerting all our energy to make things happen. We become impatient, wondering why things aren't happening as quickly as we'd like. But there's a powerful truth that we need to understand. Sometimes we don't have to chase after what is meant for us. We don't have to force things into place. Instead, we need to trust in God's timing. His timing is perfect, and He knows exactly when and how to bring things into our lives. God's plan for us is far greater than any plan we could ever create on our own. His timing is never early, and it's never late. It's always right on time. When we trust in His timing, we allow ourselves to rest in the assurance that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. And sometimes that means waiting. Sometimes that means staying where we are and allowing God to work in our lives in ways we can't even see yet. When we chase after things that we think we need right now, we often get ahead of God's plan. We may start feeling like we're not moving fast enough, or we might even question if we're doing something wrong. But God's timing isn't based on our clock. It's based on His divine wisdom. He knows what's coming up ahead, and He sees the big picture. While we might be focused on the next step, God is already preparing the perfect moment for us to step into. When we try to force something that isn't in alignment with God's timing, it often leads to frustration. We might find ourselves getting tired, disappointed, and even feeling discouraged. But when we trust in His timing, we learn to take a step back, to breathe, and to release our grip on the situation. We stop feeling the need to control every detail of our lives and start to rest in the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control. In those moments of waiting, we often experience growth. Our faith deepens, our character strengthens. God uses these seasons to prepare us for the blessings He has in store. It's easy to get impatient, especially when we see others around us seemingly moving forward. But we have to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. What God has for you is unique, and just because it looks different from someone else's path doesn't mean you're not exactly where you're supposed to be. God's timing often works in ways we don't expect. There are times when things seem like they are falling apart, but in reality, God is rearranging things behind the scenes. It's easy to think that we're being left behind or that we're not good enough. But remember, when it's your time, nothing can stop what's meant for you. His plan will not fail. When we trust in His timing, we stop forcing things and start to allow God to open the doors that need to be opened and close the doors that need to be closed. And this trust is not just about waiting passively. It's about being active in our faith while we wait. It's about staying faithful to our purpose, continuing to do the work that God has placed before us, and keeping our hearts open. When we trust in God's timing, we stop trying to rush things and start moving forward with the confidence that God will bring everything into our lives when the time is right. There are times in life when we may feel frustrated by the waiting. We might feel like we're not making progress, but the truth is God is always working. His timing doesn't always align with our expectations, but His plans are always better than our own. The waiting is not a time of inactivity. It's a time of preparation, a time for God to refine us, to mold us, and to set things in place for what He's about to do in our lives. So when you find yourself wondering why things aren't happening the way you expected or wanted, take a deep breath. Know that you are not forgotten. Know that God has a perfect plan, and He is working in the unseen. The dreams He has placed in your heart are not there by accident, and He will bring them to fruition in His perfect time. You don't have to chase after what is meant for you. Just trust in His timing. And when it's your time, you will see everything fall into place exactly as it should. Patience is often a quality that we overlook in today's fast-paced world. We live in an age where everything is expected to happen immediately. Whether it's the latest technology, a quick meal, or instant communication, we're conditioned to want things now. But when it comes to the blessings God has for us, patience is not just a virtue, it is power. It is through patience that we develop the strength to endure, the resilience to overcome, and the faith to trust in God's perfect plan for our lives. Patience is not passive. It doesn't mean sitting back and waiting without action. Rather, patience is an active choice. It's about continuing to trust, continuing to believe, and continuing to move forward with confidence, even when we don't see immediate results. It's easy to feel discouraged when we're in a waiting season, especially when it feels like nothing is happening. But the truth is, God is always at work, even when we can't see it. Patience allows us to stay focused on our purpose, to keep moving in the right direction, and to know that in time, the breakthrough will come. In the midst of waiting, we often experience discomfort. We don't like feeling stuck or uncertain about what's next. But it's precisely in these moments that patience strengthens our faith. It's when we have no choice but to trust, when we don't have control over the situation, that our trust in God deepens. Patience teaches us that we don't have to rush to get to the next thing, Because God is already working behind the scenes to prepare us for what's ahead. The process may not always be easy, but it's in that process that we grow. It's where we develop the spiritual muscles we need to handle the blessings that are on the way. It's easy to look around and compare our lives to others. We may see people moving forward, achieving their goals, or receiving blessings that we desire. And we begin to wonder why our time hasn't come yet. But when we compare ourselves to others, we lose sight of the fact that God's plan for each of us is unique. Just because someone else's journey looks different from ours doesn't mean that we are behind. God is preparing you for something extraordinary, and that preparation takes time. What's meant for you will come at the right time, just as it did for others. It will also come for you. Trust that God knows exactly what He's doing, and His timing is far better than any plan you could ever make. Sometimes the very thing we want so desperately isn't ready for us yet. We may feel like we're ready to take that next step or receive a certain blessing, but God knows when we are truly ready. Patience allows us to align ourselves with His timing, to grow in the areas we need to grow, and to become the people He wants us to be before we step into the next season. Patience doesn't just prepare us for the blessings, it prepares us to handle them with grace, responsibility, and wisdom. There's no rush. When it's your time, you will be ready for everything God has in store. Patience also teaches us to trust the process. It's easy to get caught up in a desire for immediate results, but real growth takes time. Whether it's a career, a relationship, or a personal goal, the process of becoming the best version of ourselves requires steady progress. And sometimes that progress isn't as visible as we would like. There may be times when it feels like nothing is changing, but behind the scenes, God is working. He's planting seeds in your heart, cultivating your character, and getting you ready for the next level. Every step you take is a step closer to the destiny that awaits you. Patience gives us the power to stay calm in the midst of uncertainty. It helps us resist the temptation to rush or force things into place. It teaches us to trust that everything will unfold as it's meant to. When we're patient, we're not in a hurry to make things happen on our own. Instead, we learn to rest in God's timing, knowing that He will bring the right opportunities, the right people, and the right circumstances into our lives when the time is right. In those moments of waiting, we need to remind ourselves that patience isn't a sign of weakness or complacency. It's a sign of strength, of knowing that we don't have to rush or worry. It's about trusting in God's faithfulness and His ability to bring about His plans in our lives at the perfect moment. Patience is not about passively accepting life as it is. It's about actively trusting in God, staying faithful to our purpose, and knowing that His timing will never fail. There is something truly powerful about knowing your worth. When you understand your value, you stop seeking validation from others, and you stop settling for less than what you deserve. Many times we find ourselves in situations where we feel overlooked, undervalued, or unappreciated. In those moments, it can be easy to question our self-worth. We may begin to think that we aren't good enough or that we need to change who we are to gain the approval of others. But when you truly know your worth, you stop looking for approval from the world and begin to seek affirmation from the one who created you. Understanding your worth is about recognizing that you are a child of God, uniquely designed and set apart for a purpose. You have been fearfully and wonderfully made. Your value is not based on what you can do or what others think of you. It is intrinsic. It comes from knowing that God has placed something special within you that no one else can replicate. When you understand your worth, you walk with confidence, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are. When you truly understand your worth, you stop settling for situations or relationships that don't honor you. There's a powerful shift that happens when you realize that you don't have to chase after approval or love from people who don't see your value. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. The right people will recognize it, and the right opportunities will come to you. It's about having the courage to say no to things that don't align with your purpose and your standards, knowing that you are worthy of something greater. Too often, we allow the opinions of others to dictate how we see ourselves. We may feel inferior because of the words people have spoken over us, or because of how we were treated in the past. But the truth is, the opinions of others do not define you. Your worth is defined by the one who made you. God sees you as valuable, precious, and loved, and His opinion is the only one that truly matters. When you begin to view yourself through His eyes, you stop measuring your worth by your mistakes, your flaws, or your past. Instead, you embrace the truth that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that you are capable of achieving the incredible things He has planned for you. Knowing your worth also means understanding that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. The world may try to tell you that you need to constantly be doing more, achieving more, and proving your value through accomplishments and accolades. But God sees your heart. He knows your true potential, and He doesn't need you to prove anything. You are already enough just as you are. The key is to walk in that confidence, to own who you are, and to know that your worth is not measured by your performance, but by the fact that you are loved and chosen by God. When you know your worth, you are able to set healthy boundaries in your life. You don't allow people to take advantage of you, mistreat you, or manipulate you because you understand you are deserving of respect and kindness. You won't settle for toxic relationships or situations that drain you because you know that you are worthy of peace, joy, and love. It's about creating a life where you surround yourself with people who uplift you, encourage you, and recognize your value. You don't have to fight for love or approval. It'll naturally come to you when you stand firm in who you are. Knowing your worth also means that you don't have to rush or force things into your life. You don't have to chase after every opportunity or relationship, hoping to find something that proves your value. When you know your worth, you become magnetic. The right people will be drawn to you, and the right opportunities will come at the right time. You attract what you are, and when you walk in confidence, others will see your value and want to be a part of your journey. But there's a deeper layer to understanding your worth. It's about knowing that your worth is not determined by your circumstances or your past. Life may have dealt you some difficult cards, but that doesn't define who you are. Your worth is constant, unchanging, and it is rooted in who God created you to be. No matter where you've been or what you've been through, you are still worthy of all the blessings that God has in store for you. Your past does not disqualify you from your future. When you understand that your worth is not dependent on external circumstances, you begin to step into your purpose with boldness and confidence. The more you know your worth, the more you'll be able to walk in your calling. You'll stop looking to others to tell you what you can do. And you'll start listening to the voice of God that tells you you are more than enough. You are capable. You are chosen. When you understand your worth, you stop doubting yourself and you begin to step into the fullness of what God has for you. You know that you don't have to chase after success, recognition, or approval. When you know your worth, success and blessings will come to you in God's perfect timing. In life, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of what we think we want, especially when we see others around us achieving success or receiving the things we desire. But here's something important to remember. You don't have to settle for less. You don't have to lower your standards or compromise your values just to obtain something that doesn't align with your purpose. There's a tendency in all of us to get impatient, to rush into situations or to take shortcuts, thinking that it will bring us the happiness or success we're looking for. But the truth is, settling for less never leads to fulfillment. It only keeps us stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction. When you refuse to settle for less, you make a powerful decision to hold out for what aligns with the life that God has designed for you. God has a plan for your life that is greater than anything you can imagine. His intentions for you are filled with purpose, prosperity, and peace. And when you trust in His plan, you don't have to force things to happen. You don't have to settle for opportunities that don't reflect your worth. When it's your time, the right things will come to you and you will be ready to receive them. Sometimes settling for less looks like accepting relationships or friendships that don't respect or value you. It's easy to want to be liked or to feel like we need to keep people in our lives out of fear of being alone. But when you know that you are worthy of love, respect, and honesty, you won't settle for anything less. You won't allow anyone to mistreat you or take you for granted. You won't stay in relationships where you are constantly trying to prove your worth. Instead, you will surround yourself with people who uplift you, support you, and reflect the value you know you possess. You will wait for the kind of relationships that honor your purpose and bring out the best in you. It can be difficult to wait for the right things. We live in a world where instant gratification is the norm, and it's hard to be patient when we desire something so badly. But when we settle for less out of impatience, we often find ourselves in situations that don't bring the fulfillment we thought they would. Maybe it's a job that doesn't challenge you or align with your passions, or a dream that you've let go of because it didn't seem achievable. When you settle for less, you can miss out on the opportunities that are truly meant for you. Refusing to settle for less means that you understand the value of your time, your energy, and your gifts. It means knowing that you don't have to force things into existence. You don't have to try to fit yourself into situations that don't feel right. God will bring the right things into your life at the right time, but it requires patience and trust. You have to be willing to hold out for the things that truly align with your purpose, your values, and your dreams. And in the meantime, you have to believe that God is preparing something greater for you. When you refuse to settle for less, you begin to recognize the value of what you already have. You don't need to chase after what others have because you know that God has uniquely equipped you with everything you need for your journey. You have your own path, your own purpose, and your own set of blessings that are on the way. By refusing to settle, you give yourself the space to receive what is truly meant for you. It's also important to remember that settling for less isn't just about waiting for external things to come into your life. It's about refusing to settle for less in the way you view yourself. It's about not allowing negative thought, self-doubt, or fear to define who you are. When you refuse to settle for less, you stop allowing limiting beliefs to hold you back. You know that you are capable of achieving great things, and you believe in the dreams God has placed in your heart. You believe that you deserve the very best because you know your worth. There will be times when you are tempted to settle, when things don't seem to be working out the way you want them to, or when life presents you with options that don't quite match your desires. But in those moments, you have to trust that God is at work. His plan for your life is greater than anything you could orchestrate on your own. Don't compromise your values or settle for something that doesn't reflect your true potential. Hold fast to what you know is right for you, and trust that when the time is right, the right opportunities, the right people, and the right circumstances will come. Settling for less may seem easier in the moment, but it only leads to regret and frustration down the road. By refusing to settle, you align yourself with God's plan for your life, and you open yourself up to the fullness of the blessings that He has in store. Don't allow fear or impatience to lead you into situations that are not meant for you. Stay focused on the dreams and goals that are in your heart, and trust that in time you will receive everything that is meant for you. When you wait for the right things, you will experience the peace and fulfillment that come with knowing you didn't settle for less. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle, constantly chasing after success, accolades, and external validation. We live in a time where everything seems to be moving at breakneck speed, and sometimes it feels like we need to keep up with the world's demands. But amidst the noise and the chaos, there is something invaluable that we must guard above all else: our peace. Our peace is not just a fleeting feeling of calm. It is a deep inner assurance that everything is working out just as it should. It is the quiet strength that comes from knowing that God is in control, and we don't have to scramble to make things happen. When we truly understand the value of our peace, we start to realize that nothing is more important than protecting it. When we talk about peace, we're not just referring to a moment of quiet or stillness, though that's certainly part of it. True peace goes much deeper. It's a peace that transcends circumstances, a peace that comes from knowing that no matter what is happening around us, we are held in God's hands. When you embrace this kind of peace, you stop letting external circumstances dictate your emotional state. The ups and downs of life no longer have the power to shake you, because your peace is rooted in something far greater than anything the world can offer. This peace is invaluable because it allows us to remain steady in the midst of uncertainty. We live in a world where things can change in an instant. Jobs can be lost, relationships can shift, plans can be disrupted, but when you have the peace of knowing that God is in control, you can weather any storm. It's not that challenges and difficulties won't come your way. It's that when they do, you'll have the strength to face them without losing your sense of security and trust in God's plan. The world tries to sell us the idea that peace can be found in success, wealth, or recognition. But those things are temporary and fleeting. External circumstances can change at any moment, and if our peace is dependent on them, we will find ourselves constantly chasing something that can never fully satisfy. True peace, the kind that brings rest to your soul, doesn't come from what you have or what you achieve. It comes from the assurance that God's presence is with you in every moment, that He is guiding you, and that He has already paved the way for your success. Sometimes we let our circumstances steal our peace. We allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by stress, worry, or fear. We can become so focused on everything that needs to get done or on the obstacles in our path that we lose sight of the peace that is available to us. But when we learn to prioritize our peace, we begin to see things from a different perspective. We start to realize that everything is not as urgent or as dire as it may seem in the moment. We begin to trust that God's timing is perfect and that His plan for our lives is far greater than anything we can control. In that trust, we find the peace that surpasses all understanding. When we prioritize our peace, we also learn the importance of setting boundaries. There will always be demands on your time, energy, and attention, but not every opportunity or request is something you need to take on. Sometimes, in order to protect your peace, you need to say no to things that don't align with your values or your purpose. You may need to distance yourself from people or situations that bring drama, stress, or negativity into your life. It's not about being selfish. It's about preserving the peace that allows you to thrive and live out the purpose that God has given you. When you protect your peace, you give yourself the space to grow, to rest, and to be fully present in the things that matter most. True peace also requires surrender. It means letting go of the need to control every detail of your life. So often we get anxious or stressed because we feel like we have to have everything figured out. We want to know the exact steps to take, the exact outcome, and the precise timing of every decision. But the reality is we don't have all the answers. And that's okay. When we learn to surrender to God's plan, we release the burden of trying to control every aspect of our lives. We trust that He will guide us, that He will open the doors we need to walk through, and that He will close the doors that aren't meant for us. In that surrender, we find peace because we realize that we don't have to have it all together. God already does. One of the greatest gifts that peace offers is the ability to rest. We live in a culture that glorifies busyness, but busyness doesn't lead to fulfillment. True fulfillment comes from living in alignment with God's will, and that requires moments of rest, reflection, and renewal. When we prioritize our peace, we give ourselves the freedom to rest without guilt, to step away from the demands of life, and to recharge our bodies, minds, and spirits. Rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity for maintaining our peace and staying connected to our purpose. In this journey of life, there will always be challenges, uncertainties, and moments that test our resolve. But in the midst of it all, peace is the anchor that keeps us grounded. When we protect our peace, we stop chasing after things that only bring temporary satisfaction and instead focus on what truly matters. Our peace becomes the foundation for everything we do, the way we make decisions, the way we respond to adversity, and the way we interact with others. It's not something we have to chase after, it's something we already have, waiting for us to embrace it fully. When you prioritize your peace, you create space for God's will to unfold in your life with ease and grace. And in that peace, you will find strength, clarity, and purpose. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves waiting. We may feel like we're stuck in a season where things aren't moving as quickly as we'd like, and the impatience can grow. But in those moments, it's important to recognize that the waiting is not a time of inactivity or wasted time. It is a time of preparation. It's easy to look at a period of waiting and feel discouraged, thinking that nothing is happening and that things are falling behind. But the truth is, God is always at work, even when we can't see it. While we wait, He is preparing us for something greater, something beyond what we could imagine. Waiting can be uncomfortable, but it's often in these seasons that we grow the most. We learn patience, resilience, and trust. We learn to let go of the need for control and surrender to God's timing. Sometimes we are not quite ready for what we are asking for, and God in His wisdom is giving us the space to grow, mature, and be shaped into the person who can handle the blessings that are on the way. It's in the waiting that we build the strength to carry those blessings when they arrive. In these seasons, we also learn to trust God more deeply. Waiting forces us to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, and it's in those moments of surrender that we experience a deeper relationship with Him. We realize that we don't have to know everything or have everything figured out right now. God knows what we need, and when we need it, He's not withholding from us, He's preparing us, and that preparation is a gift, even if it doesn't always feel like one. It's easy to rush into things, to want things now, but if we allow God to work in us during these times, we will see that the result will be so much better than anything we could have rushed into ourselves. Waiting also teaches us the value of contentment. It's easy to think that we'll only be happy when we get what we want. But that's a dangerous trap. True contentment doesn't come from the next achievement, next step, or the next season. Contentment comes from knowing that God is with us right where we are, and that the journey is just as important as the destination. When we learn to be content in the waiting, we discover peace that isn't dependent on circumstances. We begin to live in the moment and trust that God is working, even in the places where we can't see it. It's important to remember that waiting doesn't mean we are inactive. We don't just sit back and do nothing while we wait. Waiting is an active process, of time to continue growing, learning, and preparing for the next step. It's about staying faithful where we are, continuing to do the work we've been given, and trusting that God will open the right doors at the right time. In the waiting, we're not just passively sitting by, we're actively walking out our purpose, even if we don't yet know what the end result will look like. Each step we take is preparing us for what God has in store for us. There's also something incredibly powerful about the waiting process that builds anticipation. The longer we wait, the more we recognize the value of what's coming. We begin to understand that God's timing is perfect, and that the very act of waiting is creating something beautiful within us. It's not that we're wasting time, but rather that we're being cultivated for a greater purpose. The greater the wait, the greater the reward. When we understand this, waiting becomes a time of expectation rather than frustration. It's easy to get discouraged when things don't happen on our timeline, but we need to remind ourselves that God's timing is far better than anything we could have planned. He knows what we need and when we need it, and His plan for us is good. He is never late, and He is never early. He is always right on time. In this space of waiting, we can rest in the peace of knowing that He is at work, even when we can't see the full picture. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, know that it is not wasted time. It's a time of preparation, a time of growth, and a time to deepen your trust in God. You are being shaped and molded for something greater than you can imagine. And in time, everything will unfold just as it should. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, even in the waiting. And that when it's your time, nothing can stop the incredible things He has prepared for you. Waiting doesn't mean you're being left behind. It means you're being prepared for the greatness that is ahead. When it's your time, everything will come together perfectly, and you will see that all of the waiting was worth it. Stay encouraged, and remember, when it's your time, nothing can stop what's meant to come to you.